What if I told you that one of the most extreme thrill-seeking theme parks in the UK once gave Barney his own little empire? And I don't mean just a meet and greet or a walk-around costume character, I mean a full-on Barney land, with a theater, a playground, a shop, all of it inside a place better known for flinging teenagers through the air on giant steel death machines. And then, it basically vanished. People do not remember this thing at all. Even in Barney circles, it gets completely overshadowed by the much more famous Universal Studios attraction. So today, let's talk about the forgotten Barney attraction at Alton Towers, what it actually was, how it became theme park lost media, and how this media was eventually found. Welcome to the Barney Desk. By the late 90s, the theme park Alton Towers had done a pretty good job positioning itself as the thrill capital of the UK. This was the park of death-defying coasters, huge stunts, and attractions with names that sounded like they wanted you dead. It was a huge draw for teenagers and adrenaline junkies, but there was one problem with that strategy. Families with very young kids aren't exactly planning a full resort trip so little Timmy can ride the Smiler. More specifically, it needed something that could pull in preschoolers, and more importantly, the parents attached to them. And at the time, there were very few children's brands bigger or more recognizable than Barney. Now in the UK, Barney had only really broken through in the mid-90s, a little while after the brand's late 80s American start, which meant he was still very fresh and marketable, like where kids would lose their minds if they saw him. We're still in that phase. So let's introduce a major player in this story, Sloane Coleman. She began her career as the promotion manager for Barney's special events in the early 90s and was later promoted to senior vice president for live events at Lyric Studios. And let me tell you here, Deskies, she was not messing around with anything. This is the same woman who once famously demanded $1 million budget and the top rock and roll manager available to produce Barney's inaugural national tour. She was diva, we love to see it. So at some point, Sloane and the Alton Towers team got in a room and they made it happen. Lyric wanted physical Barney footholds outside North America to strengthen the brand internationally and keep the merch machine humming. Alton Towers, they just wanted a big name preschool attraction. It was a very easy handshake. So now, let's talk about the actual land, because this is where the story gets really good. The plan was to make a mini Barney complex inside the park's family area known as TowersStreet. The building that became Barney's theater actually had a much older life before the dinosaur moved in, originally being constructed in the 1950s as some kind of funhouse. But by 1999, it had been sitting eerily vacant for years, and then Barney arrived. And there was a soft launch of the concept in the spring of 1999, with it being officially opened in April of 2001. Once Barney moved in, the show's premise was pretty simple. Barney welcomes the audience to his treehouse alongside Baby Bop and BJ to perform a sing-along. This was a tightly choreographed, roughly 25-minute musical revue that ran multiple times a day. It was a relentless melody of earworms designed to completely exhaust the remaining energy of the young crowd. Tonally, I find it feels very close to Barney's Big Surprise, just condensed into a theme park format. And look, I find the set list actually pretty interesting. One of the biggest standouts is that this show advertised the Dino Dance as a brand new song. This was its very first appearance, and the Dinos even singled it out as a new addition during the performance. So if you're not in the know, most people think this song debuted in the 2000 video Coming Over to Barney's House, when it actually debuted a year prior in this attraction. That's such a bizarrely specific flex for it to have, but you know what, like, cool. The whole production relied on tightly synced, pre-recorded dialogue and music, like the rest of the Barney live shows, with the performers essentially puppeting the characters to those tracks, which is pretty standard for this kind of live show in general, but still it takes a ton of precision to pull off correctly. And you really do have to give the flowers to the performers here, because like, the physical effort involved is so much. Like, they were doing multiple shows a day, in summer weather, in costumes and suits and puppets that were not exactly designed with human comfort as the top priority. That's not easy work. Also, something I found out while I was doing the research for this video is that a performer for both BJ and Baby Bop in this show, named Craig Salisbury, went on to play a Gringotts Goblin in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and was in the Lucasfilm Willow. It's pretty cool. Honestly, I might even go as far as to say this show sounds better on paper than Universal's Barney attraction. A Day in the Park is obviously iconic, but the Alton Towers set list pulled in a handful of newer Barney songs at the time, which gives it a bit of a fresher feel than the old standards of the 1995 attraction. Also, I'd say for the most part, the suits are more accurate to the show. At least BJ, though I don't know if he looks incredible. Alton Towers really did squeeze every little bit of value out of this contract, because by the end, they even rolled out a dedicated Christmas version of the show for late 2002 into early 2003. The whole thing got reworked for the holidays, swapping out the usual Barney numbers for Christmas standards like Frosty the Snowman and Deck the Halls. Very similar to the seasonal overlay Universal would do for its Barney attraction. Outside of the live show, the Barney area had a lot more going on. Right next to the theater was Barney's Playground, a separate indoor play space built for the part of the audience that was too young to care about the show and just wanted to launch themselves into something squishy. It featured a multi-level bouncy castle setup, softball pits, branded inflatable animals, and a nearby cafe area for parents, which I gotta say, sounds really cool, but it's also perfect from the park's perspective. The kids burn off their energy, the parents get to sit down for 5 seconds, and everybody leaves feeling like they got their money's worth. Awesome. There was also Barney's Shop, because, like, of course there was. If you're gonna bring one of the most successful preschool brands on the planet to your park, you're absolutely gonna make sure there's a retail point nearby to intercept every emotionally compromised family on the way out. Barney was a merchandising machine. Plush toys, books, tapes, the whole deal. So the shop was not some extra bonus. It was really integrated into the setup the whole time. Anyway, overall, looking at the entire land in general, I find it really interesting. This was not just a Barney show that happened to be inside of Alton Towers. It was a full branded themed area, like Harry Potter Land before Harry Potter Land. So if it had the live show, the playground, the merch, and by all accounts seemed to do exactly what it was supposed to do, why did it suddenly die? Because Barney exploded at the Macy's parade. It's his fault. No, I'm kidding. But I actually did make a video on how Barney changed the Macy's parade, if you're curious. It's up there. Anyway, the real answer is that it didn't die. It just expired. Major theme parks usually don't license third-party kids brands forever. They bring them in on shorter contracts to match whatever preschool property is hottest at the moment. And on Barney Online's UK page, the Alton Towers attraction was clearly framed as a 3-year run. So right on schedule, by early 2003, Barney's time in the park was up. And also by 2003, the UK children's market hosted a brand new obsession, something called the Tweenies. It was a homegrown BBC property, it was very popular, and probably a much more natural fit for a British family audience at that exact moment. So Alton Towers joined the dark side, and on April 5th, 2003, Barney's Theatre became the Tweenies Theatre. The playground lost all its Barney branding, and the whole thing was reskinned with surprisingly little disruption. That's what I find kind of eerie. The bones of the attraction barely changed. The infrastructure was still there. The playground was virtually like the exact same. They just peeled the Barney off of it. Anyway, all this Tweenie stuff set a precedent for that building to become a revolving door of preschool IPs. After the Tweenies, it hosted Bob the Builder in 2006, then shows like Milkshake Workout Live, before finally being gutted to become an Ice Age 4D cinema in 2012. And that constant shapeshifting is exactly why this attraction has been erased from theme park memory. From what I've researched, and trust me, there's slim pickings, people consistently confuse the Barney era with the much later Wobble World era of the park, even though that park didn't open until 2009. And because of that, the show's presence quickly became lost, and you can see why. It only ran from 1990 to 2003, and alongside it just not being in America, there's another reason you may not have considered. This was the era of the bulky VHS camera right before camera phones. Parents weren't going to lug around a massive camcorder into a dark theater where filming was actively discouraged by park staff anyway. So unlike later attractions that lived forever online through endless shaky videos and Flickr dumps, this one barely got preserved at all. And if anyone did manage to upload grainy footage to early video sharing platforms, Barney's owner at the time, Hit Entertainment, was notoriously litigious and aggressively scrubbed it with automated copyright strikes. Info and pictures of this attraction are very difficult to find, and I would know because I made this video. Then, in March of 2011, YouTube user ChrisWillow1 uploaded a low-quality recording of the show. The audio is pretty compressed and the video is very shaky, but you know, like, it was the only proof at the time we had that this attraction existed, at least in a moving form. Other low quality snippets surfaced over time and a few images, but it was not until March 26th, 2026, literally a week ago as of the time I'm writing this, that YouTube user Estafreddy uploaded a full remastered version with proper audio, and genuinely, that was huge. We finally have it. Shout out to you, Freddy. You're a cool guy. Thanks. And you know, that's why I think the Alton Towers Barney attraction is such a perfect forgotten attraction story. Not because it was massive or because it had some kind of big failure, but because it was exactly the kind of heavily branded, aggressively marketable, completely real experience that should have left a much bigger footprint than it did. Instead, it kind of slipped through the cracks of the vague cultural consciousness with any proof that it existed. And then the park moved on, like it was never his at all. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you should consider subscribing. I do a lot of deep dives in the forgotten history of the Barney franchise and brand, so if you find this interesting, click the button below. I also just made this really cool video on the bizarre history of Barney fan videos. I consider it my best work, and I highly recommend you go check it out. It goes in a lot of really cool directions, and I think you're gonna really like it. And speaking of which, you can also join the Deskies, our little community here, where you get behind the scenes videos, early access, voting in polls, custom badges and emojis, and access to our Discord server. We have over 70 people. We do a lot of fun stuff there. You're gonna love it. It's a great way to support the channel if you like what I do here. And hey, did you know about this attraction? And would you like to have gone to it? Let me know. As always, I've been the Barney Desk, and thanks for watching.